Hi, and welcome to episode 11 of Anniversary Edition. Today we're going to be talking about Some Like It Hot, which celebrates its 60th anniversary this year. So I'm joined today by...
Tom.
Kieran.
Adam.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good.
So we are definitely going to spoil this film, so if you haven't seen it, please go and watch it before you listen to this podcast.
Yeah, if you missed it in the cinema.
Head back and watch it.
It's currently on Netflix. You have no excuse.
Yeah, literally no excuse. So this movie was released in 1959. And to give you an overview of the movie, a little synopsis, it's set in Chicago in 1929. Two musician friends witness a mafia murder and escape the city disguised as women in an all-female band. Accurate?
Yeah.
Not fully. I mean,
okay.
most of it's set in Florida, no?
Well, I mean,
The beginning is- it starts in Chicago.
It starts in Chicago.
Then it's not set on the train, and then,
And they don't just witness any old massacre.
It's the St. Valentine's.
The famous one.
Yes, the famous one. So, we have Tony Curtis, Jack Lemmon, Marilyn Monroe. It's a classic. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming everyone's already seen it before the podcast.
What, before we came to record today?
But let's just check. Tom, when did you first see this?
I was trying to figure this out, whether I saw it as part of a film studies class when I was a teenager, or if I'd maybe seen it before that. Mm-hmm. I can remember knowing the title of the film, and it being one of those movies that, like, my parents and parents' friends, like, if I said that I liked films, they'd always say, "Have you seen that film? Have you seen something like that? It's really funny." And I'd be like, yeah, okay, how funny can it be for a 1950s movie? So, I seem to remember, like, being aware of it before I actually saw it, which kind of makes me feel I probably did see it in, like, a film studies class.
Okay. Kieran?
I definitely would have seen the ending before I saw it, because it's one of the most famous endings in cinema history.
Yeah.
Despite being, as we have established, the oldest of the group here, I did not see this on its original cinema release.
What?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I think out you wasn't a film fan when he was 20, folks.
Damn it. You got to have your one age joke on me in an earlier episode. It would have been TV or DVD, or again, possibly film studies related. I don't know. I have a feeling I would have been in my 20s by the time I got to see it.
I'm not entirely sure you'd seen it when I first met you.
No, I probably hadn't. I was probably, like, at that point, I was like 18 years old and like, oh God, black and white films.
Yeah.
Who watches those? And then since gained a greater and deeper appreciation of cinema. Yeah. I think I probably would have been in my 20s, and it might have been on TV when I saw it. Yeah.
Okay. Adam, how about you?
Interesting, Tom says it's one of those films that your parents say, "Oh, you should watch that film. That film's great." And you roll your eyes and you're like, "Oh, yeah. Sure, parents. You're the barometer on what's cool in film." Gotcha. So they made me watch it. My mum made me watch it. Shout out Sue. She made me watch it maybe 15 years ago, I suppose. Yeah. I rolled my eyes, like Kieran says.
Yeah.
It's how good can it be?
They don't even have colour. Can't be any good.
Yeah.
Where's the space battles?
Yeah. Everybody speaks
Like it
slightly
off.
too quickly. How good can it be?
I like you guys, I think I saw this on TV with my parents. I kind of came from this genre of movies, I guess, was like my family's favourite thing to watch. Loads of black and white movies. So for me, it wasn't really a surprise that we were watching a black and white movie.
I can tell you grew up in the hood.
Can you? So yeah, I would have seen it when I was, I don't know, like 12, something like that, probably. And obviously watched it again ahead of this. So do you guys have favourite moments in the film? Kieran?
Loads of them.
Yeah.
I'm going to preface this by saying I absolutely love this film.
Amazing.
To the point where when I was watching it this time, I almost didn't watch it, if that makes sense, because I've seen it so often.
Okay.
And I realised when I was writing my notes, all I was doing was writing quotes down. rather than taking actual notes about the film. Rather than moments, I guess mostly what I love about it is the dialogue. The dialogue is still really good, even though it's kind of peppered with bits of slang from the 20s and indeed accidentally from the 50s, because there are a lot of anachronisms in this movie. I think it still, for the most part, holds up.
Yeah.
And the chemistry between Lemon and Curtis is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there are any kind of like I haven't really noticed any moments other than towards the end I wrote, Jesus, Tony Curtis can really sprint in a pair of heels. No, I don't have moments. It's an overall thing for me, this film, yeah.
Yes. Wow.
Sorry, it's not very helpful.
No, that's great. Tom?
I kind of agree. I was going through thinking, like, what's my favourite scene? And I can't pick one. Because I think it's one of those movies that starts off with such a strong premise and just runs with it, and it just stays at that level all the way through. It's kind of classic scene after classic scene after classic scene. I love the scene on the beach where Tony Curtis introduces himself as Junior to Marilyn Monroe for
I was
the first
slightly
time.
tempted to try and do this whole podcast in that voice.
and the faux Cary Grant voice, which is just brilliant.
Which is even pulled up on by Lemon. He says nobody talks like that.
Exactly, yeah. Which apparently was Cary Grant's response when he saw the film. But yeah, and so I think that scene I think is brilliant. And then anything between Jack Lemmon and God, what's the name of the guy?
Satchel Mouth.
That's it. I really said a variant of that, but it was not good.
Osgood is the character's name.
Osgood, yeah.
I wrote he has a mouth from Jurassic Park.
Anything between those two, I think, is just perfect. The comedy timing of those two. I mean, Curtis and Lemon as well. To a lesser extent, Marilyn Monroe.
She was full of drugs.
Yeah.
And notoriously bad at this film.
And constantly late, so they would shoot entire scenes that she was supposed to be in. They would go and do entire scenes of something else, waiting for her to get out of her trailer.
Apparently she'd take like 50 takes to get a single line.
Yeah,
it was like, I think it was 47 takes to say 3 words. It's not good.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that Jack Lemmon kind of said that she kind of knew that she wasn't the greatest actress or the greatest comedian, and she knew that what she was really great at was being Marilyn Monroe, but that took a lot of effort for her. So she knew that if she turned up on set knowing that she couldn't do that, it was probably best that she didn't go. So he kind of threw a bit of a lifeline, I think, in terms of like her involvement in the film, saying that, the fact that she gave the performance she gives in this film is incredible. Like she did really well. So, but I think, like I said earlier, it was picking favourite scenes. You could just throw a dart at a strip of film, basically.
Pretty much my opinion too. Adam, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. There's so many good scenes. I will say all the best scenes have Jack Lemmon in them.
Yeah, I think that's probably
my opinion.
Fair.
I think Jack Lemmon really impresses me in this film.
I think everybody's kind of at the peak of their powers in this. Even Monroe, even knowing the state she was in doing it. Like, I'm not sure any of apart from perhaps Jack Lemmon showing the other side when you get to Glengarry Glen Ross. Showing how good he is as a serious dramatic actor. I'm not sure any of them have been any better than they are in this movie.
I think Jack Lemmon's. I think The Apartment is one of his strongest performances as well, which was after this. After this,
a couple of years later.
So I mean, he was always amazing. But I'd agree, Jack Lemmon. He's
so funny.
Yeah,
and the interesting thing about this film to me is that it deals with a lot of gender politics.
Yes.
It has a lot to say about how men think they can treat women. When they go into the toilet the first time to like repair the bra. That's all they're talking about is like they're grabbing at me and they're that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very woke.
Yeah.
In 2019, when watching this film, we're thinking like, is this a bit dicey? But it's very
Yeah, we'd already had this conversation in 1959.
Yeah.
And we're still having it
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
It's very timely. It's a very timely film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, although I think it's so, like, it shows you how ingrained that is into the culture, that even though they're experiencing what it's like to be a woman by dressing up as women, they're still hounding women at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
So when they're men,
Like, it doesn't stop them.
Exactly, yeah. And so it kind of like, it just shows you how
Lemon in particular is like a declawed tomcat.
absolutely,
in this film.
yeah, which is so funny because he just embodies Daphne so easily.
Yeah.
Like he just becomes her. Like
Yeah,
he just
so completely.
You know, and like that reveal of him changing the name on the train. That he's just decided he wants to be Daphne, not Geraldine or whatever it is. It's just, I mean, they're just moments of Curtis's reaction to it, I guess, that makes it the moment that it is. But yeah,
I think, like, for me as well, when you talk about Curtis's reaction, the scene when Lemon's been out, well, Jack Lemon's been dancing all night with. Sorry, again, I'm doing the same thing that we do. I'm using character names and action names interchangeably. So when Daphne is with Osgood and announces when she arrives back to the room that she's engaged, and it's Curtis's reaction of, but, like, you're not Daphne. Just where? Yeah, it's brilliant and it's perfect.
That whole scene had to be reshot because test audiences were laughing so hard they would laugh over other jokes. So that's why they came up with the maraca gag. And added pauses so there was time for people to laugh and then respond to the next joke.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
You've got a hit on your hands when there's too many jokes.
And people are laughing too much.
Yeah.
That to me is one of the most perfect scenes in this.
I think they screened this and it bombed.
Yeah.
And the first screening bombed, and Billy
But a lot
Wilder
of classics do.
Yeah.
but I think and people were going a bit like, oh my god, what's going to happen? And Billy Wilder was like, it's fine, we've just screened it in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And they did it again
There
a
were
week
so many
later.
recommendations for him to change it, and he was like, "No, we're not changing it."
Yeah, because he was so confident.
Yeah.
I think he's another one who's at like the top of his game.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone have? I think we've all kind of touched on this. Jack Lemmon, for me, is like by far my favourite performance.
Loads off the screen in this film.
He's just incredible.
And you know what I really liked about his performance? I suppose it's more the writing of the character, but very much not protective of his masculinity. In the same way
he
that
was
Tony Curtis is.
Yeah.
No, Well, Tony Curtis in general was sort of more of a man's man type guy.
He was a macho leading man, whereas Jack Lemmon wasn't. He was a character actor. He was more of a character.
So
although he was a leading man, he
well,
was still more known for embodying a character.
Well,
than
you notice that in this film, he essentially plays three characters.
Yeah.
Yes.
So rather than just he goes away and dresses up as a woman and that's his character, he plays his regular character. He plays Josephine, and then he plays Shell Jr. as well.
Yeah.
So when I was researching this movie, he literally is listed as having three parts. Yeah. So it's Joe, Josephine, and Shell Jr. Whereas Jack Lemmon is literally just listed as Jerry and Daphne because he doesn't. But there's that very particular difference between the two.
Yeah.
But he has that extra character.
Yeah, the way that Jack Lemmon's happy to be a kept man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the answer to all of his problems.
Yeah.
He just has to continue pretending to be a woman until the right moment.
Yeah, and he's totally okay with it. He's not protective of his masculinity at all.
Actually, that's something else I realised. When they're talking about the wedding, at no point do they say, this is weird or it's wrong for two men to get married.
No, they don't.
Well, they do. They do touch upon like
he
it's
says
not
something like they're a. He doesn't say rules, but he says something like that, doesn't he? Like they're a guideline.
It's against the law or something.
Yeah. There are guidelines and it's not done or something.
Yeah.
It's very
But it's not.
For a film set in 19... Well, for a film not set in 19... But for a film made in 1959... It's remarkably forward-thinking about gender roles.
Yeah. I think that's why it's so interesting, though, today. Like, in 2017, this got voted as one of the best comedy of all time in a poll of, I think it was, 253 film critics from 52 countries, which was conducted by the BBC. And I'm like, I completely understand why, because it's still... The conversations are still so relevant. I don't think it's lost anything in that area.
You could
and
make
it's
that
still
film
so
today.
funny. Yeah.
Easy. You wouldn't have a better cast, but you can make it today.
I was thinking, I think I said in the last show about movies that date, and the fact that this is technically, we look back on it as a 50s film, but because a 20s movie because I think that layer of period drama, if you like, or that layer of like setting it in that period kind of helps keep it fresh.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because it kind of, it kind of gets away.
There was already distance when they were making it.
Exactly.
They had that objectivity.
Yeah, I think it probably frees them up a little bit to be a bit more, because the 20s were a bit more of a risque era than the 50s.
Yeah.
You've got all the prohibition stuff going on. And,
they
that
had
kind
a
of
bit more
stuff.
freedom.
Yeah, so there was a bit more. I think that whole gangster movie and that prohibition era. There was people saw it a bit more debauchery, a bit more freedom.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even though it was
in the opening scene,
exactly
brilliant.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, that the opening of this movie holds up as a great gangster movie in the vein of like White Heat and Angels with Dirty Faces and all of those.
Just with a couple of jokes in it.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Kieran, you mentioned earlier that you think you'd seen the ending of this before the movie. Because it's one of the classic endings of all time. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Do I want to talk about the ending?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's two words. It's the perfect button on that joke. Of him rambling about all these reasons why they can't be together.
Yeah.
And like Osgood doesn't care. He's fallen in love with whoever this person is.
Yeah. Osgood
and again, it's progressive.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Osgood would marry a man
Yeah.
as long as he loves him.
Yeah.
How nice is that?
Beautiful, right?
It's crazy.
It's
and that
perfect.
line, "Nobody's perfect," must have brought down the house
Absolutely.
in cinema.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
I saw this fairly recently with somebody who was seeing it for the first time, and English was not their first language, and they laughed out loud all the way through. And again, at that joke at the end, got exactly the reaction you think.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, it's a delight to watch this with someone who's never seen it before.
Yeah. I don't think
Particularly
I've
if
ever
you
seen
kind
it
of know
before,
what's
have
coming
you?
as well.
Yeah,
It's
'cause
wonderful to watch their
you're kind of
reaction.
waiting, and you're like, I don't want to be that annoying person that's sat there watching you watch a movie, but I kind of want to watch you watch a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched this with my girlfriend Jen, who's not necessarily a watcher of more historical films. She tends to only watch contemporary films with a contemporary sense of humour, contemporary acting, sets and everything. But she watched this through and she was laughing throughout. She found it consistently funny, more so than she does for modern comedies.
Yeah.
It was great to watch that happen. It's so easy. Even if you're sitting at home and you're listening to this podcast, wherever you are listening to this podcast, and you haven't seen Some Like It Hot, you just kind of like to hear four people talk about films.
Funnily enough, I have spoken to someone who's listened to this, who's only listened to the first episode and went, I hadn't seen Halloween, but I really love the show.
Yeah.
So there is an audience out there apparently who doesn't watch the movies and just listens to us.
It's so easy to hear people say that Some Like It Hot, made in 1959, is still so super funny, and be like, yeah, right.
I would have been the same. And I think it's Mel Brooks who said that sometimes funny's just funny. Like there are certain things that were always going to be funny, and I think this is one of those movies, and I think it's got that. That sort of time when you were making a comedy, you tended to have a kind of a higher jokes per minute ratio than you would in a modern comedy.
Yeah.
Like you think of modern comedies that we get.
Some of them have no jokes per minute.
Some of them don't have any.
Lots of them.
But you'll probably have a payoff to each scene, perhaps, when you'll have a few jokes smattered here and there. But it's unusual to have a comedy that's essentially character driven, that is that funny consistently and constantly, and at such a pace.
There are gags of every different kind.
Yeah.
Visual gags, great lines.
Yeah.
There's literally something for everyone in this movie.
Yeah, some really clever wordplay.
So obviously, we all have a resounding yes, I think, that we like this film.
Love this film.
Love this film, okay. So I'm not going to ask you if you think it's still good, because obviously you do.
I think we do, yeah.
Yeah. So I think you could make it today, line for line, scene for scene. As I said, you wouldn't get better actors.
No.
But,
No.
And it would be a hit. If it hadn't been released then, release it now. It'd be a hit.
Yeah.
There is one very weird thing about this film, though.
Okay.
This little romantic jazz comedy has a body count of 12.
Yeah.
This
I
little
would not
jazz
wanna be on
romantic
that
comedy starts with a car chase and a shootout.
Yeah. Spats Columbo.
Can we just talk about the car chase and the crazy stunt with the like the handbrake turn that goes kind of out of control?
Yeah.
With
It
guys,
felt like Baby Driver.
there were guys like hanging off the side of that.
Yeah.
I would not have wanted to be one of those stuntmen when that car literally slams to a halt. Because I'd forgotten that it starts. I always forget that it starts with a car chase.
Same here.
Yeah, I forgot that.
And I
as well.
forget how long it takes to get out of Chicago, actually.
Yeah,
Yes,
it is quite a chunk of the movie that they're still, sort of set. They're still in Chicago and the train as well.
Yeah.
It's
quite a
25.
while.
It's 25 minutes before Marilyn Monroe shows up in a 2-hour movie.
Oh, what an entrance though.
Yeah, like Jello on Springs.
Yeah, see, funny. So obviously we've talked about the fact that it's a great comedy, but I think, Tom, you touched on this at the beginning of the movie. You say it looks and it's set up like a proper gangster movie.
Yeah. So some of the people in it, like there's like Pat O'Brien and George Raft, who like they are those legendary guys from those movies.
And those mobsters look like mobsters.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of them were mobsters.
Oh, yeah.
So like that they were mobsters that became actors. And then they're kind of just
False
reprising
authenticity.
exactly. They're just reprising those roles later on down the line, and I think that was part of Billy Wilder's genius, was that he was just he starts off in that genre so firmly that when you introduce, I mean, because it's what I mean, you get the whole car chase, you get the whole fake funeral parlor, you get into the speakeasy, you introduce the cop.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, wow, this is like something's all going down here. You introduce spats, and it's only then that you kind of pan across to the band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just keep going until you get to Curtis and Lemon who do it together. And then it's kind of like you start to focus on them a bit. And
If
then
you don't know
they
anything
become.
about it, like in the first 5 minutes, you
Exactly.
could very easily think it's a gangster movie
Yeah.
before
Completely.
you get to
You think-
the two leads.
Yeah.
Do you think the detective is
Yeah.
the lead
Yeah, exactly,
character?
yeah.
I get Spats.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he sets it up in such a way that I feel like the audiences that would have seen it in that era, like you could have just gone into, like Some Like It Hot could easily be a gangster film title. Like
No,
you could
God's
easily,
Heroes,
Yeah.
they're eased into the film with such sleight of hand and such subtlety. They're just woven into the fabric of the film. You know what this film is, and the fact that they're just eased into the plot like this, you're like, oh, right, okay, so these are the stars.
Yeah, because you're basically like all hell is breaking loose in that speakeasy. Yet you're just watching two men pack up their instruments.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're just like, well, okay, so why am I watching these two when all of this stuff is going on? So clearly these two are important. And like you say, that's just their gentle introduction and of them
what does
legging
this
it.
achieve for you?
What do you mean? Like as a setup, you mean?
Yeah, because for me, I have it in mind that what impressed me, and I've written this down in my notes, that despite the fact that we don't hear from Spats for so long in the mid-section of this film, we're always aware he's a threat.
Yes, that's the thing. It sets up.
It's funny because I kind of forget about him.
See, I always think that like there is that underlying like. It sets up the seriousness of the situation even before they witness the massacre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you already know.
Yeah, absolutely.
You already know that they're in a bit of a dodgy situation. They should probably get out of it if they can, just because they've been involved in this raid.
Yeah.
So already there's a reason for them to leave before they even get to witnessing a mass murder.
Yeah.
And then that obviously creates even more of a reason for them to want to leave. But I think like you're right. It sets up the threat levels, and it does it in little increments, but very cleverly, so that threat I think does stay there, and you kind of think,
Yeah.
They're
okay,
dead men walking.
Well, this is interesting because I end up getting carried away in the whole comedy part of it.
Yeah.
And then
You get swept
That's
away
really
by the
interesting.
caper of it.
I mean, I think even like perhaps the second time I watched it, I couldn't didn't remember how it ended.
Right.
I mean, I remember the actual ending, but not that at that point they're on the run from mobsters.
Yeah.
Like it all just kind of fades away to me until the Lovers of Italian Opera turn up. and Among those, the deaf mob boss, which is such a brilliant little character.
Yeah.
He could have been nothing, a throwaway, and that guy and that character make it something memorable.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much attention to detail though in those smaller parts as well. Like there's nothing's overlooked.
Yeah.
You know I love details. One of my favourite little details is when Sugar and Daphne run back from the beach to tell Josephine about meeting Shell Oil on the beach, and Daphne thinks he's going to catch him out now, and get there, and I'm just going to say I'm going to call him Walter Matthau. Then that's Jack Lemmon's other part, and Tony Curtis is in the bath. And in the reverses on Daphne, the blind and the window are askew, and it's not mentioned at all. But that's obviously how he got back in.
Yeah. I love Jack Lemmon's absolute joy that he's gonna catch him out, and he's just like, I've got him. It's gonna be brilliant to watch him worm his way out of this one, and then it just all collapses when he's just completely outthought.
Complete disbelief, and then
and it's his absolute frustration as well when he sees him there, and he's just like, oh,
and then
God,
Tony
you kidding
gets
me?
out,
Like, how did you do that?
He gets out the bath.
It's just
like, oh God,
oh man,
it's brilliant.
What a great scene.
Yeah,
their friendship actually through the film is quite interesting in how the dynamic between them.
Going on there.
They essentially they swap characters a lot.
They do. They do.
Which to the point where it made me wonder if at some points they were accidentally reading each other's lines.
Because Jack Lemmon goes on this trip thinking, I'm going to get some ladies on this trip. Sees Marilyn Monroe, and he kind of loses it a little bit. Like,
He does. It's essentially it's the live
get her
action
up to my bed.
Yeah.
And as soon as they hit Florida, everything changes.
Yeah.
but I think that's what causes the friction between them.
Yeah.
So like it's one of those things. It's
And
like
he says,
a bit of competition and a bit of
one of them. Oh, I'm forgetting. One of them actually says to the other, "You didn't even want to come on this trip to start with." And I think it's during the engagement revelation.
Yes, yeah.
And Lemon's so happy about the engagement, and Curtis says, "You didn't even want to do this to start with."
Yeah. I think it's one of those things. I think you're right. They do kind of swip and swap a bit, but it's one of those things. I think they kind of need to, because you've got to create that. It's
It
one of those
drives
things.
the plot, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it shows that they're like a couple because they need each other.
Yeah.
You know, they're bass and saxophone, and they seem to have been bass and saxophone in a whole bunch of different bands, but together they can just about keep their heads above water.
Yeah.
If they can stop betting their coats on the horses.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but without each other, then they'd both fail.
Yeah.
And they're kind of codependent. And I think that's why it works so well, because you kind of get so many different relationships.
Yeah, I think, and that's what adds to the comedy of it. I think it's so interesting because of the way that the relationships change between Marilyn Monroe and Tony Curtis, and then initially you think, oh well, is it going to be Jack Lemmon that?
It sets itself up to be a love triangle that then just completely dissolves pretty much as soon as they hit Florida. Yeah.
Osgood works his romantic magic.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, Osgood's great in this. What a great character.
The cross-cutting between the two date scenes is brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All that whole scene, and then when it culminates, when he has the revelation that he's engaged, is just brilliant. But between those two scenes is fab.
Yeah.
Like Daphne going from not even wanting to go on the date to it being exactly as Osgood predicted. Like, they're the last people left, and the band are blindfolded, and they're still dancing together.
Yeah. Is there anything that anybody didn't like about this movie?
Yes, the woman with the overbite on the train. Hey, have you heard the one about the one-legged jockey? Hate that woman. She's so annoying.
The bellhop.
The bellhop.
Oh,
Okay.
the rapey little teenager.
Yes,
But-
that's not for a film that's so forward-thinking. That single character, not cool.
No.
However, he feeds the wokeness of it.
Yeah,
you
it's
have
very
to have
true.
you have to have something to rail against. I have an issue with this, where people go into movies and go, "Oh, that character's saying something inappropriate. That character's doing something inappropriate." Yes, that character is, because that's their character.
Yeah.
That's what that person does.
Yeah.
You must know someone who always says the least appropriate thing at the least appropriate time.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
that's
that
their
bellhop
character.
that character, past the end of the film, is going to be convicted for rape.
That's true. Hopefully, gets fired.
Yeah.
Gets fired first. Yeah.
Yeah. What happens after the end of this film?
Well, can we not do this now? Okay. We'll do this at the end.
We'll do it later. All right. Sorry.
Anything else that people didn't like?
I can't think of anything.
I can't think of anything. I was trying to think of something to write down, and I was just like,
Damn.
I was trying to think, like, you couldn't.
Yeah, go on.
Like, there were things like, there were talks about possibly replacing Marilyn Monroe, or that she wasn't necessarily the first choice, and I was kind of thinking, even I think if you changed her, I don't think it would be as good.
No, I think Marilyn Monroe is great in this. And we should talk about her.
Yeah.
After I say that I don't like all.
You don't like jazz.
We're supposed to feel on Tony Curtis's side a little bit, I think, but I found it difficult to root for amidst all the lies.
Well, you think while he's hoodwinking this woman.
Well, he's a liar
she's
from the
sort
beginning.
of hoodwinking him back too, though not to the same extent.
No. She also does deceive him by pretending to be a society girl.
Yeah.
He lies in a huge way about everything he is.
But he only gets a kiss. They didn't.
No.
You think?
He gets a lot more than the kiss. At least, certainly, a lot more than the kiss on the lips. After that night, certainly.
I think I'm not entirely sure you're supposed to root for him.
Okay.
Necessarily.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he's set up as the
scoundrel.
The scoundrel, and like Lemon is kind of the long-suffering friend.
Yeah.
Like you keep betting my
he's
coat
supposed to
away,
be like
you keep
a
betting
sort of
this.
rogue you can get behind, right? But
I'm not
it's
sure.
hard to get behind him when he's trying to get on top of everything.
I'm not so sure. I kind of feel like you're.
There's only one thing he's trying to get on top of.
He probably got behind her as well.
I kind of feel like you're trying to. I feel like you're
Sophie's
supposed to.
face whenever the show deviates from PG in any way is always a picture.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you're supposed to be rooting for Jack. You want things to work out for Jack Lemmon.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of
He's a
want
good
him
guy.
to. You want him to get the girl as well at the beginning, like when he's the one that's spending more time with Marilyn Monroe. You're like, oh, he's going to get the girl this time,
Yeah.
and his annoying friend
And
who bet his coat away.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like that scene is you're watching Tony Curtis's efforts, and you're kind of like, oh, I wish this was Jack Lemmon getting this opportunity. Like you kind of feel like, I want to see Jack Lemmon get his kind of reward, as it were, for being long suffering, and then you're intercutting that with him getting stuck with Osgood.
Yeah.
And then that dynamic starting to change. So I think it kind of serves that purpose. I think it pushes you more towards Jack Lemmon, because the end of the movie is more about him.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's kind of, I think it's Billy Wilder just gently nudging your allegiances.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think.
I'll take that. I'll take that happily. One of my notes is Marilyn's tits are just out there all the time. All the time.
Yes.
She was pregnant during the making of this film.
Her boobs are
did
going
not know
crazy. There's no support there. She's wearing just pretty much a completely see-through piece of negligee the entire film, and she's just swinging her boobs around. So, if you haven't seen this film, dear listener, you might want to.
Well, this film
weird
actually
shape,
won an Oscar for best costume design.
Oh yeah, I bet
Funnily
it
enough.
did. I bet it did. A standing ovation, I'm sure.
I think it's more for getting two 6-footers into dresses and heels.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I said standing ovation. Probably didn't want to stand up after watching that.
There were a whole bunch of nominations as well, but yeah, that was the only win as an Oscar, and it won three Golden Globes as well.
Yeah.
But,
Or making a swimsuit for Jack Lemmon that didn't make his penis just sort of there. It's a lot of tucking, a lot of masking tape.
Oy. Oy. It's interesting that that's the Oscar it won, because I would have thought it would have been a writing or a directing
Writing,
or even
absolutely.
a performance
yeah.
thing.
So Jack Lemmon was nominated for Best Actor in a Leading Role.
Sure.
It had nominations for Best Director, Best Writing, Cinematography, and Art Direction. But yeah, that costume was the one it won.
I mean, comedies don't usually win.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just curious to look up what actually did win that year.
Oh.
So what does happen after they drive away on the boat?
All right, so
What
here's
happens
the
next?
future. they are escaping Florida. I want to say Miami, right?
Possibly. I think it's just generalised as
Where
Florida.
have they got to go to?
Well, they were going to go away
Florida.
and go away and get married.
Yeah, so they go
And
to
then-
Cuba, right?
Yeah.
They head to Cuba.
Or
Oz-
Mexico? Cuba?
Mm,
Okay,
probably a better
Cuba.
shot straight down to Cuba.
Okay.
Let's go with Latin America.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cuba does come first, I guess, on
Yeah.
that trip. Yeah.
So Jack Lemmon's character, what's the character's name again?
Jack Lemmons.
Yeah,
Well, he's
Daphne.
Jerry or Daphne,
Or
depending
Jerry.
on which side.
Jerry.
If it's
Yes.
the guy.
So Jerry and Osgood get married in
Okay.
Cuba. Tony Curtis, Joe, and Sugar. They start dating, but it doesn't go very well.
Okay.
Because Tony Curtis constantly gambling their money away. Sugar sort of trying to make ends meet, but failing because she's not very skilled at anything.
And discovers
other than
rum.
Singing. She discovers rum, absolutely. Becomes an alcoholic. Their
I
relationship.
think you could argue she is already.
Yes, their relationship,
Yeah.
much like her drinks, are on the rocks. And this is around the time that Osgood and Jerry also start rowing. Now, Osgood, as we've mentioned, has had several divorces, which really only tells me one thing in my experience of life. A man who has several divorces is a man that can't emotionally handle an argument.
Do you think that even though he has married a man,
Yep.
that Jerry will still be looking at women?
I think Jerry and Sugar are inevitable.
Interesting.
They've gone bang.
Okay.
They're going to get loco down in Acapulco. It's inevitable because Sugar and Joe, they're not well matched. Sugar has said several times that she's been with men just like him. They're terrible. She
Break
can
her
never
heart.
stand it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Jerry is the guy she's looking for. She's the kind of person that she really wants deep down, someone reliable, someone to make emotional, mature decisions. Osgood's, he's never going to be in a relationship where he can handle having someone who will stick up for himself, which Jerry will do.
Should we write a really depressing sequel? I'm like, yeah.
So I just think...
Meanwhile,
Yeah.
back in that hotel, there's 5 dead bodies and he's clearing up.
Jerry
yeah.
and Sugar
Messy.
are going to get together.
Would it be a case of Jerry stays married to Osgood because of the money?
Yeah,
And
they
he's
may well
happy
have
with
an affair.
that.
Yeah.
They may well have
And then
an
they
affair.
have an affair. So Osgood's he's completely aware of it, quite
Yeah.
happy with it.
Joe may well even come up with a scheme to...
Oh, what you
Osgood?
think? Wow.
Joe would.
Oh,
Joe
no,
would.
I don't think it's
Oh,
that
wow.
dark.
Joe
no.
would.
dark.
Joe would.
No, he wouldn't.
Joe would.
No, I don't believe you. Can't possibly happen.
Either way, Osgood's not a young man.
No, that's true.
So, Jerry inherits a lot of money.
Well, Daphne does.
At this
I
point,
mean, Jerry
well,
died, right?
well,
Because
no.
Daphne
at this
got
point,
married.
Osgood knows... Oh, wait. Is it
Yeah, but that's
his
the
name?
thing.
Yeah,
I mean, if
no,
they get
they do.
married-
But once they get to Cuba, does he go back to being Daphne for the marriage? Because
Because he has to, surely.
Well,
In the time.
same-sex marriage isn't legal in Cuba in 1959.
Well, very true. Very true.
So it's Daphne. So Jerry, Jerry doesn't technically
Jerry
exist
doesn't
anymore.
technically exist anymore. Oh, this is getting a bit dark.
Yeah.
It's dark and
It's
complicated.
pretty dark. But what happens to Tony Curtis' character Joe? That's the big question. I think I've covered everything here. I think Jerry and Sugar will end up together once Sugar realizes she wants a nice man to look after her.
I think he's one of those guys that just like
He never learns.
He never
He's
learns.
just
He's
gonna
He'll-
live
going to live on a beach,
Mm-hmm.
sucking back Mai Tais and shagging local girls / tourists. for the
or,
rest of his life.
getting into trouble with the local gangsters,
Yeah.
owing the money, that kind of thing.
Yeah, he's a gambling addict.
He's a gambling
I don't
addict.
think they're
yeah.
friends for long.
No,
I think their poverty and their the requirement to play music together is what made them friends in the first place.
And they don't have that anymore because Daphne's got Jerry.
it's like
got Osgood's money.
It's like you've taken one of the most charming films of the 1950s and given Ken Loach the sequel.
Well, I was going to say, should we add to our disclaimer at the beginning how we're going to spoil a film? We are also going to completely ruin it for you.
So anyway, to move on from the depressing
let's bring this back up.
So this is exactly what happens at the end, after the closing credits of Some Like It Hot.
The reason it didn't win more Oscars was because it was up against Ben-Hur.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
And that one, I think, and so interesting.
That's one of the ones that was one of the steamroller, Titanic style
11.
steamroller. Yeah, exactly.
11
11.
Oscars it won, and so interestingly, technically, Some Like It Hot didn't even win Best Costume. It won Best Costume Design, Black and White.
Because
Ben-Hur won Best Costume.
Right.
So they had separate categories for
Wow.
colour and black and white.
Because actually, this should have been in colour, because Marilyn Monroe had in her contract that all her movies were going to be in colour. The reason it's not is because the makeup they had to use for
the guys,
for Tony Curtis, and Jack Lemmon, when they did colour tests, had like a green tinge that just looked odd.
I imagine it was stubble.
Yeah, I think it probably
Showing
was. So that's why it was filmed in black and white.
Apparently they
It's a fairly major design choice.
Yeah.
apparently they weren't like 100% committing until they got themselves completely done up in their costumes and walked around the studio lot as women, managed to go into the women's bathroom, apply makeup and get back to their office without anyone knowing that it was them.
Or at least nobody's saying.
Yeah.
Like, people else like, that's definitely Jack Lemmon in a dress. I always thought it was a bit odd.
It's Hollywood. They've seen all kinds. They've seen all kinds.
They did actually have a renowned coach working with them to try and get them to walk naturally in heels and things. But I can't remember if it was Jack Lemmon or Tony Curtis. But one of them said it needs to stop because it's getting too good.
Yeah, they shouldn't be good.
They shouldn't be
no,
good.
absolutely.
The whole point was the whole point is that we're not.
Yeah.
We're not good. We're not supposed to be able to pull this off initially.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've stopped working with her. Yeah.
There is one tiny other little detail I noticed that I
Go
wrote
for it,
down.
Kieran.
Other details.
We get jingles now. During the birthday cake massacre near the end, where Spatz gets it, the guy pops out the cake. Watch the people behind the gunman, because there is one guy there who doesn't flinch at all.
All right, just some bullets.
Yeah, I think you can see three people. One guy reacts properly, one guy kind of ducks for it a bit late, and the third guy just sort of sits there. He's not even looking at the gunman, really. He's not paying any attention and doesn't notice.
Maybe he is a blind, deaf person.
Maybe he is.
Maybe he's in on it, and he knows.
I mean,
Must
even
not.
if bullets are loud, Sophie,
Are
even
they,
if you
Adam?
know that one's going to fire,
I mean,
We
I've not
thought you
been
would
in
know being from the hood.
being from the hood,
yeah.
obviously.
if one's going to
The
fire
mean streets of Bristol.
Yeah, watching
within
black
10
and white
metres
movies.
of you, you probably would react.
Oh, I've been on film sets where there's been blank fire, and that makes you
Blank
brown
fire,
yourself.
blank fire from 100 yards away
Oh, you
still
hear
makes
it.
you jump.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess this guy's earplugs are working a bit too well. It's
working
the opposite of the kid in. It's a Hitchcock movie. Is it North by Northwest, where there's going to be gunfire in a diner, and before the gun goes off, there's a kid with his fingers in his ears.
It is this in North by Northwest.
Bastard kid.
Yeah.
So that was Some Like It Hot. I'm going to pass you over to Adam, who is presenting next week's episode.
Oh, yes, guys. Be very excited. Next week's episode, we are travelling through the Stargate.
We're all very excited about this, so make
Kurt
sure
Russell Stargate or MacGyver Stargate?
Oh, this is going to be Kurt
Russell all the way.
full on like white man high top Stargate.
Make sure you tune in next week to catch that. So this podcast was recorded in the Upbeat studio in Soho. For any studio inquiries, drop us an email on studio@upbeatproductions.com. You can also find us on Twitter. Head to @UpbeatProd to see what we're up to, and @upbeat_ents for our film coverage and entertainment news. Thanks again for listening, and we're going to say bye.
Are we?
We are.
Are we?
I'm going to. I've
Do
got
you not
places
want
to
to?
be. Bye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Well, seeing as everyone else is leaving me here in the studio on my own.
Yeah, can you sweep up before you leave and turn the lights
I want
out?
him to tell you a few secrets about Tom that he doesn't want you to know.
Roll the music.
All right. See you guys.